Hey guys, this is Gaijinhunter, and I've been doing my top 5 weapons series, but I wanted to do one for the Prowler because Prowler is my main weapon in Monster Hunter Generations. For those of you who are kicking cats from your room, shame on you. Cats can actually be as powerful, if not more powerful, than hunters if they're leveled up properly and the player is good at them. Now, because the boomerang cat, as I like to call it, likes to do a lot of hits, doing elemental is actually really important, so I'm going to be doing my favorite weapon for each elemental and status type. Okay, let's jump in. Meow. And here you thought that I wouldn't start with the Hellblade weapon, but here I go again. This is the F-Scorched Whiskers. This is the high-rank version of the Deviant for Glavenus, the Hellblade Glavenus. This is a balanced weapon, meaning that it's both strong in melee and boomerang, and it does cutting damage. It's got an incredibly solid 170 attack on melee with 26 blast, and 160 attack with 15 blast on range. Remember, when you have pierce boomerangs and big boomerangs going, you can be doing like 3 hits every single time, and that's like double boomerang, that's like 6 hits, so this amount of blast is pretty crazy. And before we go into the elements, it is worth noting that there is one really good raw weapon, which is the Deviant Silverwind Nargacua's Star. This is a boomerang type, so it specializes in boomerang damage and does cutting. It's got white sharpness, where the Glavenus had blue, so it's doing even more attack power. 144 attack for melee, 25% affinity, and 176 attack for range with 20% affinity. And with white sharpness, that means you're going to be doing a lot of damage. Now, it doesn't mean that taking the right elemental to the right monster and hitting them in the right place isn't going to be more powerful, but if you're looking for an all-around weapon that's going to deal out consistently high damage, and you don't have to change it up, choose either the Hellblade or the Silverwind or my later one, which will be the Dead-Eye Garuga, and you can't go wrong. Those are probably my top 3 if I had to choose. This is also probably a good time to note that if you need to make the high rank Deviant weapons, you have to clear either the level 9 or the level 10 request for the Deviant. You don't have to be the one who posts it, so if you're a cat and you're suited up well enough to handle the fight, go ahead and look for a Deviant 9 or a Deviant 10 room. Join it and clear it, and you should be able to make the weapon. You might have to go back and do the Deviant 1 so you can get some low rank materials, but with only just one hunt, you should be able to forge the weapons in just one shot. And that's not something a hunter can say, yeah? Okay, my favorite fire weapon is the Deviant Spam Lord Rathalos Blade R. It's a balanced type, blue sharpness with cutting. Melee is 160 attack, 32 fire, 150 on the boomerang with 26 fire, and that is a ridiculous amount. If you're up against a monster who's weak to fire and you're hitting them in the right spot, they are going to flinch for days. And speaking about flinching for days, if you're going up against a monster who's weak to ice, the Snow Baron stick, which is the Deviant Lagombi, is ridiculous. It's another boomerang specialized type, but this one is an impact type, meaning that not only will you be doing a lot of damage, but you'll also be exhausting them and perhaps KOing them. If you hit them in the face with the boomerang, it will do KO damage, which is awesome. Being a boomerang type, it is only a small 120 attack and 26 ice on melee, but 146 attack and 32 ice on the boomerang with blue sharpness, so it does decent damage and it does incredible elemental damage as well. Okay, moving on to Thunder, it is the Hyper Lagiacrus Anchor R weapon. So it's going to use the Hyper Lagiacrus weapons, which you do have to get to HR7 to unlock. It's a boomerang type, blue sharpness, cutting, 133 attack, 5%, 16 thunder, not so strong on the melee, but the range attack is 162 with 5% affinity and 26 thunder, so this thing is solid. Okay, moving on to water, we have the Amatsu, which is the F-Cursed Cloud. It's a boomerang and cutting type with blue sharpness, 144 attack, minus 10% affinity and 30 water for melee, and because it's a boomerang type, it's strongest there, which is 175 attack, which is super top notch, minus 10% affinity and 22 water, so it's definitely a solid choice if you are able to make it. Speaking of water weapons, there's one more I have to mention. The Hyper Nibble Snarf weapon, the Nibble Blammer R, is by far the best weapon for leveling up your cat in this game. It's a boomerang impact type with blue sharpness, 114 attack, 16 water, but what we care about is boomerang, which is 138 attack and 26 water. Now what you want to do is use this against a level 10 Dead-Eye Garuga. With 4 cats using this, you should be able to KO the monster probably a good 3 times, perhaps more if you're really good. And the water is really strong because it takes 20 water to the face and 50% water damage to the back. And in a room with 3 other cats using the same setup, you should be able to clear the quest in under 5 minutes. The high rank deviant fights are the ones that give you the most experience for your cats, so just spamming this a few dozen times and you should be level 50, the max level. Okay, moving on to Dragon. This was a really close fight against the Alatreon weapon, which I really like because it's designed like a scythe. But if you want to play min-max, then the Shagaru weapon wins out. It's a boomerang type of cutting damage and blue sharpness, so it's only 126 melee, 10% affinity, and 14 dragon on the attack. But for the boomerang, it gets 154 attack, 10% affinity, and 24 dragon. Definitely a solid weapon all around if you're up against a monster who is weak against dragon. Okay, moving into the status types, if you don't really care about doing a lot of damage and you just want to paralyze the monster because you want to play support, then definitely the Manabra is your winner here. You've got a boomerang type of cutting. It's only green sharpness, but that's not the point. 82 attack on melee with 6 para, but the boomerang does 102 attack and 10 paralysis, which is the best you're going to get when it comes to these type of weapons. It actually adds up. You should be able to paralyze a monster probably 3 times a hunt if you're using a weapon like this. And if you want to do some actual damage, you can take the Hyper Najarala. It's a solid weapon. It's a balanced type, blue sharpness, impact, which is great because it will exhaust the monster as you're doing it and perhaps KO it as well. 118 on attack, 15% affinity, and 6 paralysis. And the boomerang gets 112 attack, 15% affinity, and 6 paralysis. It's probably enough to paralyze a monster twice during a hunt, but you can definitely go for KOs if you know how to aim right. This is a great weapon if you want to give to your palicos who are joining you in a hunt if you're playing as a hunter, or if you're playing as a cat as well. And as I mentioned earlier, if you wanted to nail it down to just the 3 best overall Prowler weapons that are good against almost any monster, it would be the Hellblade Glavenus, the Silver Winged Nargacuga, and this bad boy, the Deadeye Garuga. This thing is a boomerang type with a white sharpness, so it's going to be doing a lot of damage. It works just like the hunter types, guys, so you can use the same sharpness tables to calculate how much damage you're going to do. And of course with the Prowlers you never lose sharpness, which is great. It's got 135 on melee, 5% affinity, and 20 poison, but it's all about the boomerang, so 164 attack, 5% affinity, and a very massive 20 poison. The fact that you're doing 165 attack with a white sharpness, with affinity and poison, probably makes this even better than the Nargacuga. So if I was going to rank them, I would say this may be number 1. Next would be probably Hellblade, and the next one would be Narga. It's a fantastic weapon, and again, this monster is really good for leveling up your cats, so learn to fight the Deadeye Garuga. And finally, for you sleepaholics, we have the Hyper Plesioth Board R. It's designed like a surfing board, looks really cool. It's a balanced type, only green sharpness because this is all about the status. Cutting type, for melee it's 130 attack and 20 sleep, and for range it's 124 attack and 12 sleep. So this is a balanced weapon, so it's good. You can get in there, you can do the boomerang combo, you can melee, you can do boomerangs. Just you want to hit the monster as much as you can to put them to sleep. This is another really good weapon if you want to put it on your 2 palicos if you're doing like a gunner. They can often put a monster to sleep at least once a hunt, and then you can do some free bombs. Phew, so that covers all my favorite weapons. Now if you want to really start getting into, balance the set of boomerang type, you want to focus on impact type weapons instead of cutting, there's all sorts of other good weapons as well. So let me know down in comments which Prowler weapons you found that you really liked and you want to let other people know about as well. Prowler is an unbelievable weapon. I do plan on doing a guide for it, but do know that the boomerang cats are just as good as hunters, if not better, so please don't kick them from the room, at least play with them and see how they're doing. Until next time, happy hunting.